Hi everyone, and welcome to my next video tutorial, which is going to be checking out AWS Fargate. Alright, so we're going to look at AWS Fargate, and we are going to make use of the Amazon Elastic Container Service to create an AWS Fargate launch type. Now we get two launch types. We get the EC2 launch type. Okay, in this launch type, we need to actually manage and provision our own servers, our own EC2 instances, and we need to manage them and keep track of our infrastructure, which can be quite a challenge. Now, there is another option, and that is to make use of the AWS Fargate launch type. Okay, this is a little bit easier, so you don't need to worry about managing any infrastructure such as your EC2 instances, etc., because everything is done behind the scenes. Now, to be honest with you, AWS Fargate is a serverless service. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't any servers. There are servers, but these servers, are behind the scenes. So we don't actually see them actually working. I mean, it's all behind the scenes and they are there. Trust me, they are there. But you don't need to have that worry of actually having to manage it. So AWS does handle that for us in a nice way. So let's go ahead and create this AWS Fargate launch type. So if you click on Elastic Container Service, so you can search for it. So it's called Elastic Container Service. So you can just click on that there, and you'll immediately be prompted to this page here with a video where you can look at Amazon ECS. So Amazon ECS is, of course, it stands for Elastic Container Service, and it's used for containerizing our applications. All right, so let's scroll down. And what we can do is say get started. Okay. So you can see the diagram here of how our Elastic container is going to operate. So in the center, we'll have our container definition, our task definition, outside of that, our service and our cluster. So to keep it very simple here, for those of you that are new to this as well as those of you that have experience with creating containerized applications in AWS. Okay, at the core and at the center will be our container definition as well as our task definition. So these definitions are pretty much going to house everything that is related to our application. So how we want, for example, we might have an Nginx container and we may have our Django web application container, and then our container definition and task definition are going to work in tangent to connect both of our containers together. And there will be various settings such as the ports in which they must be connected, how much memory we need to assign, all of the technicalities basically. Then we can go ahead and create a service. Now we can manually create a task if we wish to run, or we can go ahead and create a service, okay, where we can specify the amount of tasks that we want running. And each task is going to practically run our application. And then housing this, the entire structure will be the cluster, which houses everything together. Think of it as like the house of our container, you could say, at the very top. And this is going to house our services, our tasks, and everything like so. All right, so hopefully that's just a brief overview for all of you. So now you can select a container definition. So we can choose a sample app, anyone here. So I'm going to choose just a normal sample app. I'm going to scroll down, and the first thing I want to see is the task definition. So we're going to get a task definition with the name of first run task definition. The network mode will be AWS VPC, which is fine. I'm going to create new, and the most important part here is you need to make sure that the compatibility is Fargate, because we want to make use of a Fargate launch type, okay? Because we don't want to manage any EC2 instances or anything, so we are effectively going to try out serverless technology here. Okay, now we can just say next. Okay, we can define our service. Now you can go ahead and choose to attach an application load balancer if you wish. I wouldn't recommend doing this, especially if this is your first try. Okay, we just want to get a rough idea of how AWS Fargate is, working and how we can create the service. So we can just say next. Okay, we can give our cluster a name. So I'm just going to call mine demo app cluster. So you can give it a name. And what's going to happen in the process is as soon as we create a cluster, we're automatically going to be assigned a VPC. So usually this will be the normal AWS VPC. And we'll also have subnets that will be automatically generated for us. We can then say next. Okay, so you can go ahead and review everything, such as the various components here, such as the port, the protocol, our image, our container name, and our network mode. So once you're happy with everything there, along with the service and your cluster name, go ahead and create your practice application here. Now what we can see is generating everything for us: a task definition, a cluster, a service, our log groups, our subnet security groups, which is really very helpful. And you'll notice that we weren't asked to go ahead and pick an EC2 instance to configure. So this is one of the great things of making use of Fargate. Like I said, we do not need to worry about creating EC2 instances. We don't need to read the documentation and decide if we want a T2 micro or T3 medium. We don't need to worry about any of that because AWS takes care of all of that right in the background for us. So we don't need to go ahead and create any of those instances. So this is one of the great things of Fargate. It's really easy and very simple to get started. It's a very simple way of getting set up. All right. Although this is the example application that we have, but what you can see here is we didn't need to define any sort of server in our initial configuration, which is the main part of serverless technology. So what I'm going to do is wait until this service is completed, and then we can move on to the next set of steps. Right, so everything is set and ready to go here. So that looks good. So we can scroll up and view our service. Okay, so we can see, okay, this is good. So we can see we were allocated a VPC, our subnet, our security groups. Great. So this is our service. Now you're more than welcome to update it if you would like. Now let's head over to our cluster. And here in our cluster, which we named demo cluster, we can see everything here. So we have a service that was created for us. We have a task, which is running, which is great. And we also have ECS instances. But as you can see here, because we're using Fargate, we don't need to worry about any of our instances or our servers. Okay, so it shows no results, but we don't need to worry about any of that. Now, one of the good things is if we are doing this manually, okay, I'll show you how you can connect your application. But if you had a load balancer, it would be very simple. You would just go ahead and attach your container, okay, to your load balancer, get a domain name, and then you can simply connect to it. Now, I'm going to show you the manual way to connect to it. So what we can do now is click on our task. So let's just move this up. So we can click on our task here. Okay, and you can scroll down and you'll see that it was assigned a public and a private IP. Now, what we can do is we can go ahead and actually connect to one of these IP addresses. So the public one, of course, we can't connect to the private one. So you can copy that, add it in, and there we go. So there is our sample app running. So we can see our application is now running on a container in Amazon ECS. And this is, of course, by utilizing the AWS Fargate launch type. And we can see here, if we go to task, actually, you can see we are making use of the Fargate launch type. Okay, so this is effectively how you can quickly get set up. And it's just a bit of an introduction here, just to show you how simple the process is to actually go ahead and set up your application with Fargate. All right, so that's that, guys. Thank you so much.